Nobody expected a quiet church land matter to erupt into a full courtroom battle, but that's exactly where Bishop Winans now stands. What began as a simple boundary question has turned into one of the most dissected church disputes in recent memory. Newly surfaced documents shocked even longtime supporters, and what unfolded next raised questions no one saw coming. In today's breakdown, we're uncovering how a seemingly small land issue involving Bishop Winans escalated into a full legal dispute. You'll learn what sparked the conflict, what the court is demanding, how the congregation is reacting, and the surprising revelations buried deep within the filings. And stay with me, because the turning point in this case is far more dramatic than anyone expected. To understand why Bishop Winans even ended up in court, we have to go back to the beginning, long before lawyers, judges, or public filings were involved. At first, it looked like a basic disagreement over property lines, the kind of issue most churches settle with a couple of meetings. But according to community accounts and documents now in the record, this situation was different from day one. The land wasn't just land. It carried history, family connections, old agreements, and expectations rooted in decades of church life. Some members believed promises were made years ago. Others felt decisions were rushed. And instead of the confusion dying down, it quietly grew into frustration. Soon, different voices inside the church started sharing different versions of events. Some insisted everything had been handled properly. Others believed key conversations happened without enough transparency. When memories don't match and paperwork doesn't align, conflict eventually finds a way to the surface. And in this case, the question, who actually controls this land, became the issue neither side was willing to let go. Eventually, there was only one option left. Let the court examine the documents, timelines, and decisions. But the moment those filings hit the courthouse, everything changed. Once the case became public record, emotions gave way to facts, and those facts surprised nearly everyone watching. Timelines didn't match assumptions. Certain agreements were older than expected. Some signatures people believed existed weren't there at all. There were mentions of verbal understandings, quick decisions, and old references no one had seen in years. The congregation suddenly found itself reading land deeds, survey lines, and legal descriptions, details most of them had never looked at before. Some members felt validated, others confused, many simply stunned that the issue had grown this large. Then the court made a request that shifted the entire direction of the case. Additional documentation. That single request signaled something important. The filings weren't fully clear, and the judge needed more information. This was the moment tension inside the church truly spiked. Everyone waited, wondering what the next round of documents would reveal. And when those additional records were reviewed, the story grew even more complex. Not because of accusations, but because of history, old land references, informal past agreements, and decisions made for short-term necessity rather than long-term planning. Details that make sense when explained, but cause confusion when they surface years later. Some members learned the dispute actually dated back further than they ever imagined, long before Bishop Winans entered leadership. That revelation alone changed how many saw the entire situation. Then came comments from older community members who remembered early land discussions, some recalling intentions of shared use, others insisting the land was always meant solely for the church. These memories added more layers, more emotion, and more questions. Tension became frustration. Some stood firmly with Bishop Winans, believing he inherited a decades-old issue. Others hoped the court would finally bring clarity. Many were simply caught in the middle. But the most surprising moment wasn't in the filings. It came from a single question raised by someone connected to the broader faith community. Who was responsible for reviewing the land agreements before any decisions were made? That one question shifted everything. It turned the spotlight toward the process. The meetings, committees, approvals, and decisions behind the scenes. People didn't just want to know what happened anymore. They wanted to know how it happened. As memories resurfaced and stories emerged, the congregation found itself wrestling with years of assumptions and unspoken details. Meanwhile, the wider community began paying attention. Local outlets reported cautiously. Social media asked questions. And the increased visibility placed pressure on the church to offer clearer answers. Then the judge made the request that placed Bishop Winans himself directly at the center. A formal explanation outlining the exact sequence of decisions. It wasn't a penalty, it was protocol. But because he leads the congregation, the responsibility naturally fell to him. Supporters rallied behind him. Others simply wanted clarity. And observers took note. As he prepared his explanation, something unexpected happened. Former leaders and individuals involved decades earlier stepped forward with old notes, memories, and documentation. Not to take sides, but to provide context. This influx of new information widened the story even more. The history was deeper, the land more complex, the decisions more layered. And just as the court began sorting through all of it, the case entered its most intense phase. The phase where emotions ran highest, speculation grew louder, and the outcome became more unpredictable than ever before.